National 5 Biology Multicellular Organisms. Number 1. Producing new cells and control and communication. Producing new cells. Chromosome complement in our cells. Each species of plant and animal has a characteristic number of chromosomes in the cell called its chromosome complement. In every normal body cell, there are 46 chromosomes, which are made up of 23 matching pairs. A normal body cell would be any cell in the body which is not a sex cell or a gamete. And a cell with two matching sets of chromosomes is said to be diploid. Mitosis is the process by which the nucleus of a cell divides, producing two new daughter nuclei. Mitosis ensures all the genetic information of the cell is passed on, so the daughter cells function normally. And mitosis ensures the diploid chromosome complement is maintained. The new cells produced are used for growth and repair of tissues. If we have a look at the different stages of mitosis, stage 1, the nucleus contains long uncoiled chromosomes, each doubling, replicating to form two new identical chromatids. In the second stage of mitosis, the chromosomes are coiled up and the two chromatids are joined by a centromere. In stage 3, those chromosomes line up along the equator of the cell and attached to each centromere of each chromosome, there's a spindle fiber which is formed, and these will be used to pull those chromosomes apart later on. In stage 4, those chromatids are pulled apart by the centromere by the contraction of the spindle fibers, and the different chromatids are separated and moved to opposite poles of the cell. In stage 5, a new nuclear membrane forms at each end of the cell where the chromatids have been pulled apart, and the cytoplasm now begins to divide. And in stage 6, two identical daughter cells containing the same number of chromosomes as the original cell. Stem cells are found in animals. They are unspecialized cells which can divide in order to self-renew. They have the potential to specialize into other types of cell, and they're involved in the growth and repair of tissues. There are different types of stem cell. The first type is embryonic stem cells, and they can become any type of cell in the body. The other type are tissue or adult stem cells, but they can produce only a narrower range of cells. For example, a red bone marrow stem cell has the potential just to become blood cells, or a skin stem cell has the potential to become skin cells only. Cells can become specialized, and specialization in the cell leads to the formation of a variety of cells, tissues, and organs. Groups of organs work together to form systems. If we have a quick look at some specialized animal cells, these include things like nerve cells, red blood cells, and ciliated epithelial cells. In plants, cells can also become specialized, such as palisade mesophyll cells in the upper layers of the leaf, guard cells which form the stomata, and root hair cells for the absorption of water. In living things, cells are organized. Most living things are made up of many cells, which are multicellular. These cells must be able to work together. If we take a single cell to begin with, groups of similar cells, all doing the same job, for example, muscle cells or blood cells or nerve cells, they become a tissue. Different tissues working together, such as in a heart or lung, is an example of an organ. And different organs working together to do a particular job, such as the digestive system, is known as an organ system. All the organ systems working together form a single multicellular organism. Control and communication. The tissues and organs of a multicellular organism are specialized to perform particular functions, but they do not operate independently. They must work in close cooperation with one another. The control and communication required to do this is provided by two systems, and that is the nervous system and the endocrine system. If we consider the nervous system, first of all, three main parts: the brain, the spinal cord, and the peripheral nerves, the brain and the spinal cord together make up the central nervous system. If we look at the brain, the three main parts of the brain are the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the medulla. Underneath the medulla is the spinal cord coming out, going down the middle of the vertebrae. The different functions of the different parts of the brain. The cerebrum is the place where conscious thoughts are generated, memories, personality, and voluntary actions. The cerebellum is responsible for balance and muscle coordination, and the medulla controls breathing and heart rates. There are three basic types of neuron in the nervous system. The first are sensory nerves, or neurons, interneurons, and motor neurons. If we take a look at the flow of information through the nervous system, firstly, various stimuli are picked up by receptors, such as in our sense organs. Nervous impulses, which are electrical signals, are first carried along sensory neurons towards the central nervous system. Within the central nervous system, there are interneurons, and the central nervous system processes the information it's received from the sensory neurons. It then sends impulses out along motor neurons to the effectors, which are muscles and glands, and these bring about responses. There are gaps in between different nerve fibers in the nervous system, and these gaps are called synapses. So let's have a look at how electrical signals or nerve impulses are passed from nerve to nerve across the synapse. Firstly, is an axon of an interneuron, for example, then the sensory fiber of a motor neuron. The gap in between the two is the synapse itself. In the axon of the interneuron, there are sacs of chemical transmitter and receptors at the beginning of the sensory fiber. And if this is the direction of the nerve impulses, the chemical transmitters fuse with the membrane of the axon of the interneuron. The chemical transmitter diffuses across the synapse very quickly, and those chemical transmitters land on receptors of the following neuron, and these in turn set up an electrical impulse, a nervous signal, in the next neuron in the direction in which the impulses are flowing. Reflexes are to help protect the body from danger, and this is a typical reflex arc and the three neurons it involves. Firstly, we just indicate where the spinal cord is in relation to these three neurons. Firstly, a stimulus is detected by a receptor along a sensory neuron, and that carries impulses into the spinal cord. Within the spinal cord, the impulse jumps across from the sensory neuron to an interneuron, like so, and at the other end of the interneuron, the impulse then jumps directly to a motor neuron, which takes the impulse to an effector, such as in this case a muscle, which brings about a response, and the response being that the hand is drawn away from the drawing pin. Hormones are chemical messengers made by endocrine glands in the body, which travel to target organs in the bloodstream. There are several endocrine glands that you need to know about as part of the National 5 course, amongst others. And they are firstly the pancreas. The islets of Langerhans within the pancreas produce hormones involved in blood sugar regulation. The ovaries and the testes, in females and males respectively, produce sex hormones. Hormones produced in the endocrine glands travel in the blood system to target tissues where they bring about a response. Target cells have complementary receptors to which the hormone molecules attach. The pancreas is the organ responsible for making the hormones that help regulate blood glucose concentration. The pancreas makes two hormones, insulin, which lowers blood glucose, and another hormone called glucagon, which raises blood glucose. The other organ involved in blood glucose regulation is the liver, which can store glucose in the form of a complex carbohydrate called glycogen. Now, consider If there's a high level of blood sugar, this is detected by the pancreas, which will in turn produce more insulin and less glucagon. This then passes to the liver, and it causes the liver to turn glucose and store it as glycogen within its tissues. This will in turn then lower the level of blood sugar. If the blood sugar level becomes too low, then the pancreas will produce more glucagon and less insulin. And this will then tell the liver to break down glycogen into glucose, thus raising blood glucose level again. Diabetes is the inability to regulate blood glucose level. Type 1 diabetes, there are genetic and environmental factors involved. In type 2 diabetes, they can be caused by an unhealthy diet, which can lead to obesity and or physical inactivity. However, genetics can also be a factor. Those with type 1 diabetes cannot produce insulin and need to be given insulin either from injections or the use of an insulin pump. The treatment for type 2 diabetes, those whose target tissues don't respond to insulin, could be in the form of taking exercise, weight loss, diet control, and perhaps additional insulin in some cases.